You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here, looking at Houston and Purdue's matchup in the Sweet 16 in Indianapolis this weekend. We talked some about the Boilermakers, talked some about matchups, and now I want to talk through how I see this game going. Look, Houston's going to open the game trying to apply a lot of pressure both to ball handlers and to bigs wherever they are on the floor. I feel very confident in that, both because it's what Houston does, full stop, that's just what they do, but also because it's what Purdue has struggled with at different times this year. Purdue's not a perfect team. It's got 11 losses. But I do think that it's interesting to see when Houston's strength pairs with a Purdue weakness, what does Purdue try to do to counter that? Because you can't just out-scheme your way out of being less physical than Houston is or whatever, right? I think you're going to see a lot of really aggressive play on defense from Houston, and they're going to toe that line. They're going to push that line with whatever the refs allow them to do or not do. I want to know what Houston has for their hedges, right? What does it look like Houston's going to do if Braden Smith can break down the press and get in the lane and spit stuff out? What do they do? What do they get into more after that? Or not the press, but the pressure, I should say. What are they going to do if TKR is having a field day spitting out the basketball? You've seen them have moments of that with guys that are known for that throughout the year, right? Whether it's Richie Saunders, a little bit different type of four, but a guy at the four position that obviously is a fairly impactful defensive player. You've also seen Houston do things like play Javon Small at West Virginia as a top tier caliber guard, Caleb Love, others. You've seen Houston play against dominant bigs like Norchad Omier and stuff like that. And kind of dominant bigs, and I guess a different way, Norchad. But either way, you've seen Houston have success with each of those, right? And so I think we'll be interested to see how Houston handles that in this game with these matchups. I think you're going to see a big game out of Milos. I've been trying to dance around it, but Milos is bigger, stronger, faster than the guy covering him. He understands the gravity and the size going on with playing against an All-American for a guy in his position. And frankly, I think Milos and the success of Houston, Cryer puts up the big scores. Jalen Roberts been here forever. He's a name people know. Milos uses a name that's kind of gotten a lot more attention last month or so, but it's still not a name that I think people are necessarily associating with Houston and the Cougs. And so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Last but not least, I guess, and looking at what I see coming out of this one, I think what you're going to see is one of those bench guys at Houston have a truly phenomenal game. I'm still trying to pick between Mylik and Arceneaux myself as far as trying to figure out who it is. I do see a World Rush Javier Francis, but either way, I really feel like those guys are going to make a big impact in this game, have a big say in how this one goes. I talked to Bracket Breakdown about putting Mylik Wilson down as my X factor, and I would argue his defense, the plays he made down the stretch in the last 10 minutes of that game against Gonzaga in the round of 32 are what sealed the deal in that one. I don't think that's any accident, right? I feel like the same kind of thing could happen in this one. They're just not quite as deep as Houston is. And so ultimately, I think that's going to be where the game gets decided. Right now, FanDuel has it as Houston by 8.5. Ken Palm has Houston winning 71-64. I kind of weirdly think it might be closer than all that. I think it'll be like a two-possession game, so I guess that could be technically as far as 6 points. So maybe not too terribly far off from that Ken Palm connection. But I do feel like Houston's going to win this game. Again, I think it's interesting to see when what you're good at is what the other team is bad at. That's Houston's aggressive, the defense that kind of takes some risks and gambles and pokes at the ball and all that kind of stuff has flustered a bunch of different flustered Purdue a bunch of different times this season. And so if Houston's going to continue to have success with that and is allowed to play their style of game, I think that they'll be okay. I do think the crowd will be somewhat of a factor. It's kind of one of the reasons I have it down. It's close to like a 6 point game than an 8-9 point game. Is this is not a truly neutral floor. It's 70 miles from Purdue's campus. And truthfully, I'd be a lot more worried about this if I had not just seen Houston and the Cougs go undefeated on the road this season. They haven't lost a neutral court game since the Saturday after Thanksgiving. They've done a pretty good job of holding firm in that instance, and so we'll see where things go from here. But I'm thinking Houston by, let's say, 6 points. Maybe 5 points. Let's go 5.5, somewhere in there. That's kind of where I see this thing. So tell me in the comments down below what you think, or what you got going. We will be live post game, however late that may be. I said it. We'll be live post game, however late that may be. We may be recording in my laundry room. We'll see. The later that thing goes, obviously, the more likely we are to wake other people up. And there's one 21-month-old that does not need to be woken up at the end of this game. So we may be recording in the laundry and be as far away from that as possible. But either way, we'll be here live after the game. So check us out at Locked On Coogs. Hit subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, comment, hit the bell so you know when we're going live. If you can't catch it live, we'll obviously be on your audio platforms the next morning as well. Locked On Coogs is the primary Locked On podcast. And everything is your team every day. Go Coogs.